एक मिनट रुक जाओ, रेडी होने दो। चलो ये कर लेते हैं। दिस कुड बी अ ग्रेट इंट्रो।
Hi, I'm Akshay.
Hi, this is Saurabh, and you are listening to the Founder Thesis podcast. We meet some of the most celebrated startup founders in the country.
And we want to learn how to build a unicorn.
I'm Hemant Kanoria. I'm the chairman of SREI Infrastructure Finance Limited.
Start them young to teach them better is the motto of most Indian Marwari business families. And that is exactly what Hemant Kanoria's father had in mind when he entrusted him with the responsibility of reviving two sick flour mills at the age of 18 when he was growing up in Kolkata. In today's episode of Founder Thesis, Akshay Dutt talks to Hemant Kanoria and they discuss how he took the business ahead and turned it into SREI Infrastructure Finance Limited, which has assets worth around $6 billion today.
So it was a very difficult time because turning around two SWIC units, we were successful in doing so. But at the same time, the government policies changed. And because of the change of the government policies, all the flour mills in West Bengal came to almost a close down. And we had to also close down these two flour mills. Our family had the largest flour mill in Asia that particular time, Bengal flour mill.
So, what happened? What changed the government policy?
So the government decided that the flour mills, they were being allocated wheat, which was a raw material, that they would not be allowed. They had to buy it in the open market, and they would not be given any allocation. And at the same time, they introduced tax on the final finished products, which was flour and all the others. So because of that, the whole market changed because we had to bring in wheat because West Bengal is not a wheat growing area. So we had to bring wheat from Haryana and Punjab. And we used to bring it in rakes because it was essential commodity. So on the way, any of the government departments could stall the rake at the train and take over the wheat and then compensate it later on. So therefore, it was like a chaotic kind of a condition because of the government policies. And then it was a discouragement for people to have a production plant in West Bengal because there were taxes which were imposed on the finished product, but there was no tax on the raw material. So therefore, it created a huge non-competitive advantage. There was no advantage; it was a disadvantage for all the companies, and therefore the smaller, mid-sized mills had to close down immediately. The larger ones also they struggled because they required huge quantity of raw material which they were not able to procure or get. So over a period of time, the entire face of the flour mills in West Bengal changed, and our family was having the largest flour mill, which was set up by the Britishers in 1830. So therefore, that also had to. It was a blue chip company, it was a listed company, but everything had to come to a close down. And this happened by the time all the flour mills were closing down. It was 87, 88. So about 6 years of my life, I was engaged in the family business of the flour mills and all the animal feed plant, trading businesses, etc. So that's how I spent my time learning the art of the business.
Okay, so how old were you when the mills had to be shut down?
I was about 24, 25.
Okay, so then what did you decide to do next? This is obviously the genesis of SREI, but I just want to hear from you, how that actually happened.
So then we tried our hands in a lot of things because SREI also stands for, we floated this company which was known as Shri Radhakrishna Export Industries. So if you see the abbreviations, it stands for SREI. But actually it was Shri Radhakrishna Export Industries because we started dabbling in exports of leather goods, of handkerchiefs, of various things. And we also set up a cigarette filter plant for exporting. So we tried that. Unfortunately, those did not work out well. And so therefore, there were a lot of failures in my early days in life, so which was good because it taught me a lot of lessons, what to do and what not to do. And then one of my younger
What were
brothers.
some of the lessons that you that served you well throughout, like that you learned in that phase of experimentation?
See, one thing which was there is that never give up. Because see, the opportunities will always be there in adversity. But because if some adversity has happened, so that does not mean. So it was a solution orientation which was there. Because when you take over two flour mills, one being closed and one sick, so you start thinking from the beginning for on solutions and not on problems, because problems are already there, so you have to find out solutions. And therefore the genesis of SREI also happened because infrastructure in the late 80s and beginning of 90, infrastructure in India was in shambles, whether we look at power plants, because Calcutta especially had a lot of potholes, it had a lot of load shedding, and that is how we grew up. So therefore, the infrastructure was in shambles, and also the liquidity for the country that time was a problem because India had to pawn the gold to raise money, pledge the gold. So therefore, it was basically we had both these two crises. And that is why I thought that there would be an opportunity, me and my younger brother Sunil, and under the guidance of my father. So we thought about it, that what we should be doing. We said, okay, finance is a problem for the country, infrastructure is a problem. So therefore, there would be definitely opportunities because in all both these two areas were problematic. So we started financing infrastructure. So as finance was a problem in infrastructure, so we got into financing and infrastructure. So that's how the SREI started, the genesis of SREI, and then we did our first IPO in 1990.
So
Yeah.
before we reach the IPO, so when you started, I want to understand more about that time. So you were financing infrastructure. Where was the money coming from? Was it your own family money, or was it like you borrowed from banks to lend it out further?
Yeah, so our first line of credit which we got from the bank was about 5 lakhs of rupees. So you can just imagine that, in 89, when you start a company, you get a 5 lakh of rupees as a limit. You have your own capital of 25% of that. So that is how, with very modest means, SREI was started because we didn't know how the business would be doing. We had no idea as a family about financing. We had no idea as a family about infrastructure. Infrastructure had not opened up that time. So therefore, we started financing with construction equipments to contractors. And that is why how we got in touch with L&T, Larsen and Toubro was manufacturing construction equipment, mining equipment, which they were not able to sell because the total sales of construction mining equipment in 89 used to be just about 100 crore per annum, which peaked to about 30,000 crore about 4 5 years back per annum. So therefore, that is where we have seen the journey, and we were a part of the journey with. So with the manufacturer, we used to go to also help them in the sales, go to the contractors and convince them that buying equipment will help them to improve their efficiency, cut down their construction time, and their payback used to be about a year. So if a contractor bought an equipment, he was able to pay back the interest and the installments again and the principal within just 1 year. So that was the payback. That's how we introduced the mechanization into the construction and mining field along with the manufacturer. And then infrastructure started opening up subsequently.
How did you get your very first deal? Like, the first financing that you did. Like, how did that come about?
So basically, the first financing was in collaboration with, as I mentioned, that Larsen and Toubro was the company that we tied up, and with the regional manager here, they were also trying to find out how to improve their sales, and we were also trying.
But how did Larsen and Toubro know about you? Because you were till then like an unknown entity.
No, because I knew the person concerned here. So through the contacts set up with chambers of commerce and all. So therefore, we had just met with each other and we became friends. And he was trying to sort out a problem. We were trying to find solutions to the problems. So therefore, as I mentioned, that the whole approach from life from the beginning of my career in business has been solution orientation. That if there is a problem, there is a solution which is embedded in that problem. So always look at the solution and not the problem.
So, how did the business grow from the 5 lakh line of credit which you started by the time you reached to IPO stage? Like, how much were you was on your loan books, like the total amount, and if you can share that journey of building it up.
So I think that that time what we were adding was in lakhs. It was not in crores because the times were also different. It is not. We are not talking about today's times where everything is in billions of dollars. It used to be not even touching millions. So doing your first million itself was a Herculean task, and billions were just unimaginable at that particular time. So therefore, and there was nothing to lose because I was young. I was about 26 or so. So therefore, there was a lot to do in life, and because in the first few years of 7, 8 years of being in the flour milling businesses and other businesses, which was initially started off with difficult times, then it became successful. Then again, it was a failure because of the circumstances and the government policies changing. So it was good because it was the up and down. So the usual business roller coaster ride, I was able to see it in a very
In
short.
a way, you lost your fear of failure very early on because you saw it up close pretty early.
Yeah, so I would not say failure. I would say that I had my first roller coaster ride quite early in life in business. So therefore, you never you when you go on a roller coaster ride, you don't you enjoy both going up and coming down. So the entire mindset changes, and that's fortunately the mindset I had a change in my mindset too. That's how you look at businesses, and that's why we started off with Shrey. And it was about first we got from the bank, then again we were able to increase the business. Next year we got a line of 25 lakhs, then again it increased. So it was a gradual progress in the initial days till the time that in 1990, 89, 90, everyone was coming from for an IPO. So we also thought that let's do an IPO. So we got many of the investment bankers to get convinced on our idea, and we did a princely sum in 1990 of 1 crore 80 lakhs was our IPO, and that was again uh, quite an experience because to raise 1 crore 80 lakhs, I had to have all the usual brokers meetings and press meetings, investment bankers. So we had the best of investment bankers with us, and we did our road show starting from Surat to Baroda to Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Chennai, Calcutta, Mumbai, Delhi, everywhere. So therefore, just to raise 1 crore. So sometimes when I just look back and think about the journey which I made to raise that 1 crore 80 lakhs was quite an interesting journey. Now people will just, for 1 crore 80 lakhs, they will just bat their eyelid and the money will just go in. So that was the way that we went about. And then we were
So,
in.
what was your size before the IPO? Like, that 1 crore 80 lakhs increased your asset size by how much? Like, did you double it with that
Yeah,
IPO?
yes, yes, almost doubled it.
Okay.
And then we came out with a rights issue again in 92. Then again, we
Okay.
had a follow on issue. So, then continuously we kept on because once we had gone into the market, then we had got used to understanding how the market would behave. And if we had a good proposition, then the market would definitely contribute to that. And for the last 30 years, we have seen very, very many ups and downs. So it's not been just every time up. But as I said, that it's a roller coaster ride. So you enjoy while you are going up. You also enjoy the thrill when you are coming down because again you have to go up. It's a roller coaster. So it's.
So, and the lending business also started getting diversified. Tell me about that journey also, like how you diversified beyond just lending for equipment.
So what happened was that as we were growing in 95, we got the first development financial institution, the German government, to come in and extend a line of credit to us because they thought us to be a unique platform where we were lending as a private sector company lending to the infrastructure. And we were not only lending to the medium or large projects at that time because we had not started lending to the medium and large projects. We had only been lending to the enablers, which were the construction companies and the contractors. Because if they were not enabled to execute the work properly, then all the projects would not have happened. So we were absolutely at the ground level with these contractors and construction companies, and we had devised ways of assessing their risks and working with them as a financial partner instead of just being a financial bank, because that model would not have worked out, because many of the companies, they did not even have a balance sheet. I remember my first instance that because we hired a couple of bankers in our company because we wanted to do all the assessment, etc. So we had one gentleman from a public sector bank, we had another gentleman from a multinational bank who had joined in our team, and their evaluations would have resulted in doing no business. So we had to find out unique method of understanding, because the first time when we wanted a contractor to bring his balance sheet, so show us a balance sheet, so he brought his chartered accountant. And so I was quite amazed that, what would I be doing with the chartered accountant? And he told me that please tell him what kind of a balance sheet that you require, and he will make it and give it to
Okay.
you. Because, the concept for a contractor to have a balance sheet and everything should be structured, because they used to hire manual. Usually the contractors that time were known as thekedars.
Take it as right.
So thekedar, you don't have the thekedar coming with a balance sheet and all. So he thought that
It was like a all cash business, and
yeah. So he thought, because he had to give all the workers every day cash or every week cash. So therefore, whatever money that he got from the principal, he had to convert it into cash because he could distribute it. He had to buy all the materials in cash, and there were no machines that time. So we were introducing him to machines, which was at the end of the day improving his efficiency and also the productivity. So therefore, from that particular perspective, it was a new world for him. It was a new world for us. So we had to invent that how do we make the assessment in a proper manner of the credit and the risks that we were taking. So therefore, it was a different world altogether. And we then
so how were you different from a bank? Like, what was your assessment methodology that was unique to you?
So it was very simple. So what we used to look at was that the key elements for us was the track record of that person, that what he was doing, which area was he operating in, who was the principal, what was his capability to complete the project, and also that if he bought these equipments, A, B, C, D equipments, with those equipments, how his efficiency will improve, and how much of more contribution that he would have, that he can be increase his profit. At the same time, he would be in a position to pay back our interest and the installments which was there. So these were very practical, on the ground assessment which had to be done, and we had to even travel along with him to his sites to see it, whether it be a mining site or it be a site. So whether we had to travel in buses or we had to travel, because many of the places the trains did not go. So you go on a train journey, then you take a bus and you reach that particular site. You see how it was working, and if he puts in equipment, that what is the augmentation of his cash flow. So and who was the principal. So whether the principal had the capability to pay or not, and the intent to pay, and the contractor also whether he had the capability to pay. That was one which was done through an assessment, but his intent to pay, because if his intent was not there to pay, so therefore whatever you may have done on the balance sheet assessment, it would have all been futile. So these were the practical kind of things that we were basically making an assessment on, and gradually we put that into our system for assessment. So we institutionalized the entire organization by putting in whatever our learnings were there. We put it into documents, and then when the teams came in, the professionals when they joined in, they were all trained to make the assessment in that particular way.
So you like first learned it firsthand and then created a process around it, which then you were able to hire people to follow the process and
Yeah.
scale it up. Okay, interesting. So you were telling me about your diversification and how DEG funded you at a time when you were mostly working with contractors. So what happened at that stage?
So in 1995, when DEG came in, after that in 96, 97, we got FMO, which was the Dutch government's organization. Then IFC Washington came in, and they also took equity in our company. And when they came in, so then they introduced us into financing of infrastructure. So how to go about assessing infrastructure, financing them, And because when both, both these two institutions, all the three institutions, that is the DG, FMO, and IFC, they trained us and our teams to make assessment of infrastructure projects and to finance. And that's how we diversified into financing of infrastructure projects. And India was also opening up 94, 95 onwards. A lot of private sector investments were encouraged by the government in infrastructure projects. So we did our first power plant, which was a barge-mounted power plant, and another power plant in Odisha. Then we did our first road project, which was in Andhra Pradesh, and we did our first bridge project. So therefore, that's how we got, and these were the first projects which was done under public-private partnerships in India. We did all the four airports financing.
Okay. So all of these projects, you were the financing partner for somebody who was executing it.
Yes, yes, yes. So we came in as a financier, so as an institution. So besides the banks and all who were financing, but we were doing these financing as a private sector infrastructure company.
So and then you further diversified into solar also, like from financing. I think you got into the solar energy business. Like, why did you decide to go beyond just financing?
Yeah, so we were the first company in 2000 to introduce the government, the International World Bank's program of PVMTI, which is known as a Photovoltaic Market Transformation Initiative. So we worked with the Global Environment Facility and the World Bank, and we introduced this particular project in Sundarban, where we started financing solar systems, solar water systems, solar lights, solar fans, because in the villages there were no electricity. So this is what was introduced by us into financing of that. So we came in as a financial partner, and we enabled various constituents to be in a position to develop a business model where they could make money, and at the same time it would serve the need of the people. And because they were able to, the constituents were able to earn money, so they were able to take the loans and repay us. And that has been our model, because when you develop certain areas, and that particular time everyone is very new, and our diversification also basically has primarily been, it's not diversification, because then we started also making equity investment, because when the IFC as an institution, they also had put their chief credit officer on our board, because when they were introducing us to financing, then they said that you should not be only taking debt, but you should also be putting in equity, so you have better control on the company in cases there is a problem. And also you de-risk yourself, because in debt your returns are limited. But therefore, in some of the companies, things will not work out in the manner that you have wanted it to. So therefore, it will be compensated through the equity investments and the equity returns. So therefore, we created funds, and which then took equity. And because, again, as I said, that it was very new, so we had to also, in many of the cases, put operational teams, because if the operational teams were not working with the promoters, then we would have had no knowledge about it. So in the last 30 years, I think it's been a great learning journey. There is nothing which should be done or should not be done, because everything has to be evaluated at a particular moment of time, and whatever is appropriate at that time needs to be done.
So around this time, how big had you become? When IFC encouraged you to take equity ownership also in projects, like what was, like, say, the headcount of the company, or some idea if you can give me.
So I think that we were not very many that time. Must have been about, we had some few branches. We were about 100 people, and the size of the company was also about 150 crore. Then gradually, you see, the company has also grown over a period of time. And if you ask me that when we started our journey in '89, that the company would reach at this particular size, we had not imagined. So we were just embarked on a journey, like life. So you are on a journey and you don't know where life is taking. You just have an open mind, you think positive, you look at the opportunities which are coming in, evaluate the opportunities at that particular time, and see that whether it makes sense to capitalize on that opportunity, or you just let it pass by. And many times you see that something is coming as an opportunity, but then after that, that opportunity may become a problem. So then you have to deal with that problem.
Right, right, right. So I want to understand the journey from a handful of employees to 100, employees. And this is at a time when there were no digital tools. Like today, entrepreneurs and founders have access to a lot of digital tools to manage teams and so on. But how did you build up this team of 150 people and who were in different locations also? Like how was that journey like?
See, basically, to recollect, it was, as I said, that it was just a journey which was just happening. It was an
Hmm.
unfolding of
Hmm.
a book.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
as you keep on unfolding the book becomes more interesting. So then we had thousands of people joining in. We had almost
Hmm.
about 100 branches now,
Hmm.
thousands of people working all over the country. If you look at thousands of people working inside the entire group, which are
Hmm.
there.
Right.
So from few numbers, from double digit, it becomes triple digit, then it becomes four digits and five digits, and it just keeps on happening. You don't have to, and it's all effortless, because once you are building up an institution, and if you're
Hmm.
taking the right steps, then it just keeps on growing, and
Hmm.
more people keep on joining in, and more people. So you just have to create an enabling environment, and also,
So I want to understand, like you said, if you just keep taking the right steps, it keeps growing. So what were those right steps you took to, become from double digit to triple digit to four digits, five digits? Like, what were your learnings on building an organization?
So I think that one thing which was very important for us was to be doing the right things. Right things means that you keep on reviewing what we do. So when we were in the equipment financing business, first we were doing equipments which was for road construction. Then we did for irrigation projects. More and more road construction equipments came in. So therefore, we evaluated and saw that whether those would be required on the ground or not. We tied up with various manufacturers all over the world who we brought them into India. First, it was all import of the equipments which was taking place. Then we encouraged them to set up their plants in India. So now most of the manufacturers who are manufacturing construction, mining equipment, healthcare equipment, they have their manufacturing plants in India, and they are not importing. Their import component has come down to maybe from anywhere from 0 to 15%. But earlier it used to be almost 100%. So we have seen that entire journey. And we used to get lines of credit from overseas institutions and also the export credit agencies to promote these kind of businesses also. So therefore, when we were doing the financing, so we have seen all these particular, in our entire journey of 30 years, we have seen all these particular elements, that how the market has developed, how we have been able to contribute, how we have worked along with the equipment manufacturers, with the customers, and with the infrastructure players.
Some would be like where you took right decisions, but eventually it would have been your people doing the right things. And how did you create that kind of a institution where everyone takes the right decisions and everyone is contributing positively? And I mean, one of the biggest challenges for companies is, I think, this only, like how to manage people and build up that team of people who are your biggest assets possibly. So that's something I wanted to understand from you.
I think that in any organization, people are the biggest assets. So what we have always focused on is that when we are getting people, getting good professionals means that people who have the understanding of that particular. I'm not saying that we have not gone wrong. We have made millions of mistakes in the last 30 years of SREI also, millions of mistakes. And in hindsight, if you look at it and see that if I had not done this, I would have been better off. If I had not taken this person, I would be better off. If I had not done this business, I would have been better off. If I had not made this investment or given this loan, I would have been better off. But but in hindsight, everyone becomes wiser. At that particular time when you make mistakes, then how do you What we have always tried to do is that whenever we have made mistakes, we have tried to see that how do we put it in the institutional memory. So therefore, the next person does not make the same mistake. The next person may make a new mistake, which will again go to the institutional memory. But you have the luxury of, that's what we keep on telling our people, that you have the luxury of making mistakes. First, quickly learn from there and see that whether that mistake was made in the past or not. If that mistake was made in the past, that means that you have not tried to learn from what the mistake the institution has made in the past. And if you have made a mistake, that you have not tried to learn from the mistake which has been made and correct it and move forward. The biggest advantage for an organization is when they are working as a team, then as they say, to err is human. But if there are 10 people who are taking a decision together, then the chances of making mistake reduces. Because then 10 people would have put in 5 persons, 10 persons, 20 persons, they would have put in their brains together. So therefore, one person can err, but all the 20 would be making a mistake in the same thing, that there is a catastrophe in store then for the organization.
Okay. So if I can summarize some of the learnings, one, you are, I think, strongly in favor of collective decision making so that quality of decisions improves. And then you give freedom to people to make mistakes. And third thing is you try and build an institutional memory or an institutional learning from mistakes that were made so that the whole organization learns from it.
Yeah, because see, institutionalization of any of the processes and all is very important, because as we keep on saying that humans are mortals. So, all of us, we have to die. But an organization can live for 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, 1,000 years. And why an organization can live? Because more and more people keep on coming in. But if you have created an institutional, so an institution will last beyond the lives of an individual. So therefore, we do not believe that, personally, if I have done something, that maybe that I may have started this particular idea, but that does not me and my brother and my family may have started. But today is so large that just if we claim that, we can do everything or we do everything, it will be foolhardy on our part, because we are also part of the system now. So therefore, when you create a system, you have to become a part of that particular system. We trust people, so our trust with our clients, our trust with our people is 100%. We don't believe in 99.99% trust. So we believe in 100% trust. And if someone makes a mistake, it is tolerable. We'll make the correction and move forward. But if someone has tried to do something which is not correct for the organization, then we are also very strict in meting out the necessary punishment. Because as I said, that we believe in 100% trust, because I think that it is very important to build up an organization on a very strong fabric of trust, and a country also. So today, if you look at it, that what is the biggest problem in our country and many of the countries, because the trust element is missing. So the fabric has got weakened. So I think that it is important that an organization or a country builds up a very strong fabric of trust. Until unless, someone, when you build up a fabric of trust, you have to understand that 99% of the people will follow that. Maybe 1% may be errant, but you don't make, for that 99% people, you don't make the rule which is applicable to that 1% errant people. It should be the other way around. So that's what we have tried to indoctrinate in our company.
That's very interesting. Okay. So coming back to the journey, so early 2000s, you got into financing large projects, taking equity stakes. So tell me about the journey from there on.
So basically, that was an interesting one, because we had not never taken equity stake, and also when we started first of all taking equity stake, we did not put in management teams there. So we just thought that the client will be in a position, but the client we so our mistake was we did not understand, for the client also it was something which was new, because so they would also make mistakes, and therefore, and many times what happens is that the clients also make mistakes because they may have been caught up by their whims and fancies and not be going through a proper process of evaluation. And so we made our mistakes also. Then we invested in a telecom tower business, so which we were able to Beyond Telecom, so which became the largest telecom tower company in the world in 7 years' time, and we disinvested. And we also learned the art of investments and disinvestments at an appropriate time, exiting. But I would not say that again. So the learning has been that many of the investments we have been able to exit at the right time. Many of the investments we have not been. We have tried to exit at the right time in many of the loans which we have given, but we have not been successful. So therefore, I would say that it is a mixed bag. If I say and claim that in every 100% of the cases we have been successful, that would be wrong. And in the last 30 years, because the economy has gone through its ups and downs, its challenges, so we have also been a witness, not only a witness to that challenge, but we have also borne the brunt of that challenge. So some we have been able to, out of some challenges, we have been able to emerge without any bruises. Some there have been some bruises, some there have been some burns. In some cases, there would be small surgery also. So, but that's been a part of the journey.
So, what is your decision making framework on when to invest and when to exit? How do you think about it and make that decision? How do you reach to that decision that it's time to invest or it's time to exit?
So basically, it's a process again. So therefore, let us suppose that if we go sector-wise, state-wise, because India is not a country; it's a continent. So therefore, each state is different. It's almost like Europe. So when we are investing in one state maybe some state may be like Greece, another may be like Germany. So in Europe, so you don't have the same principles when you are investing in Germany, in Greece, because then someone will take everything away. When you invest in Greece, you invest with a different mindset. When you invest in Germany, then you invest in a different mindset. So the different mindset. So similarly, when we are investing or financing in any of the states or with the government policies, etc., we have to keep in mind that the government policies may change, state governments, political parties may change. They may have their viewpoints, which may be totally different when the new government comes in. So, and being in infrastructure, we are exposed to all these vagaries, like the vagaries of nature. So we are exposed to the vagaries of the political systems, to the government changes, to the various kind of people who come in. So it is a very sensitive sector which people don't realize. Yeah, yeah. So that has been the learning for us. So there's nothing I would say today is the as you are asking that what is the framework that we have for decision making. So the decision making framework is basically we do it through a collective mechanism. So therefore, there is one particular person who takes a decision. It may have been initiated by one person. Definitely, it has because the initiation has to start somewhere. But then there are different levels where the decisions have to be, the people have to give their inputs, and finally it will go to our committees where the decision will be taken. So there are people who understand those businesses. Some people may understand different other perspective of the business. Someone may understand that infrastructure sector itself. Someone may understand the financials in the infrastructure sector. Someone may understand the risks of that particular sector of that particular business. So it's a collective decision making process. So there everyone's inputs are taken into account, and then a decision is finally made.
Sure, sir. So you have seen a lot of these, the term used as vagaries of nature, like large external events which affect countries, economies, the entire world, say 9/11, the Lehman crash, the current COVID pandemic, even the liberalization in the 90s in India. So, what was your way of dealing with these large events?
See, every time there has been some way or the other that we have been able to find out solutions to those particular problems with the either working along with the government or working along with the institutions, the bankers, our clients, and that is how we have been able to steered through all these storms in the past. Now also that we are going through the storm of the pandemic, and especially last 2 years for infrastructure financing companies, it has been very difficult because of the ILFS episode which took place in 2018. So the confidence of the investors, the confidence of the bankers and the financial institutions in infrastructure financing companies have substantially reduced because we have seen the problem with IDFC, we have seen the problem with ILFS. So therefore, the confidence level is very low at this particular juncture. And there has also been a mindset change on the government because earlier the government had a, and I'm not saying that it is wrong or right because every government has the way of their own thinking, which is always because they also have their own processes, they have their own collective wisdom, which is there. So every government takes their own decisions that what should be their policies at that particular time. So at this particular time, the government policy is that, the private sector should be in a position to fend for themselves and find out solutions. So they should not be relying on the government. So they should actually become Atmanirbhar. So therefore, that is the policy. So it's fine. So therefore, in this particular times, what happens that many of the companies may take a little longer time to be in a position to steer through these issues because many are government related issues only, and especially in the infrastructure sector, if there's a problem, it is usually related to the government because the counterparty in a public private partnership in infrastructure, as they say, public private partnership, the counterparty is always the government. So by the government does not mean that government in the sense that it has to be a state or a central government, but if it is to do with the public, it is it is basically also becomes the responsibility of the government. To give you an example, let's suppose that someone has a road. Okay. So a road concession company has some problem with the government that they have either not got their payments or there has been a change in the policy. So who gets affected? The public at large, because if they are not able to maintain that road, then people who are traveling on that road, because the road concession company or the power generation company or the power distribution company, they are basically involved and engaged in public service directly and not even indirectly, because someone who is producing luxury goods, it is only limited to some people who may be buying those luxury goods. But if it is a road of power, if it is port, so it is to do with common man, because everyone has to travel on these particular on the road, or they need power, they need to travel, maybe in a train, they need to travel in the in a plane, and they need to use the airport. So therefore, it is for public service. So therefore, government gets involved, and that is where the collaboration on a public-private partnership is very, very important. But at this particular juncture, the government's thinking has been that the private sector needs to fend for themselves and find out their own solutions. So therefore, many of the companies, many of the clients that we have financed, they're trying to struggle through these particular issues because suddenly if you tell someone that you have to find out all the solutions to your problems yourself, and when you have another partner who is also along with you involved in it, and the partner says that you have to fend, so it becomes difficult. So many of the clients are finding this to be a difficult proposition, but I'm sure that they will be in a position to find out solutions over a period of time. Sometimes the solution comes uh, at the right time, sometimes the solution takes a little longer time. So but the solutions always for any problem is inevitable.
Okay. So, like 9/11 and Lehman crash, were these significant events for you? Like, did they have a significant impact?
No, but you see that yes, to the business it did have, but at that particular time there was a difference because, as I said, that every government has a different policy. That particular time during the Lehman crisis, the government at that time had a policy that we are going to see that how we are in a position to support everyone in the financial sector. When there was again, because we have not, these are the recent crises, but before that we have seen in early 90s the Harshad Mehta problem, then we saw the Chetan Parekh one, then we saw many of the scams in the NBFC sector in the mid 90s. So at that particular time, the approach was a little different than it is now. So, every government will have a different approach. So I'm not saying that anything is right or wrong because it is basically the collective decision of the government at that particular time. So at this particular time, the government's policies are that, the private sector, they have to find out their own solutions. The government cannot be coming in, cannot be coming in holding your hands every time.
Can you tell me in the last decade what has the journey been like? Like we've covered most of the 90s and the early 2000s. So, what has been the journey of SREI in the last decade or so, like, in terms of diversification or in terms of how the institution grew?
So what happened was that in 2008, before the Lehman crisis, we were fortunate. Just about 5-6 months before that, we got into a joint venture with BNP Paribas, and our equipment finance company was basically put into a separate vertical where BNP came in as a 50% partner. So that was a big support at that particular time, because by the support of BNP, we were able to steer through the crisis of 2008, because BNP came in sometime in April 2008, and September 2008 the Lehman crisis took place. And then after that, there was this support also that the government was able to offer to all the financial sector constituents. So therefore, there was a liquidity support also which came in, and we were able to steer through and grow. And I think that from 2008 till 2018, it was almost like just a one-way growth, and that was every year we were growing by about our disbursements were growing by it. First year from 2009 to 10, it was about 60%, then 50%, 35%. Year to year has been the growth. It started slowing down from 2014-15, and for infrastructure, because we took a conscious decision in 2014 to reduce our infrastructure financing portfolio and focus only on the equipment financing side. And after as I mentioned, the 2018 onwards, after the ILFS crisis, then both the growth of the infrastructure financing and equipment financing has been slowed down, because it has been more a period of consolidation, of exiting out of some of the sectors. As I said, that because we are in an area which is very much related to the government, so when our clients find difficulties in some of the areas, so it is also appropriate for us to exit out of those particular areas where the clients are finding it difficult. And because as an institution, we don't want to get into a problem, because and complications. So that is why there has been a slowdown. And I think that this slowdown is going to continue for the next couple of years, where the business is there. So we are going through a consolidation phase where we are looking at that what businesses we should be in, what we should be exiting, which are the portfolios that we should downsell and exit out of. And that has been the exercise which has been going for the last 2 years, and which I think will continue for another couple of years. So this period will be more of bringing in stability to the consolidation to the entire organization in the areas which we should be there in the future.
I want to understand more about you as a person. Can you tell me, like, what is your daily routine? How do you keep yourself at the top of your game?
See, basically, personally, I am, I love sports, so I have been almost in almost all the sports now over a period of time. With age, I've stabilized on a couple of things which I do on my daily routine. So, I do my yoga, I do my pranayam, that is my daily routine, which brings in the calmness of mind and also with the body. And then either I would be I play squash. So, few days in a week I play squash. Some days I do running. Some days I do gym. So I have my yoga plus this. So this is my daily routine, which is there on the physical side of it. So physical side, about 1 to 1.5 hours in the morning, I like to spend with myself in seeing that I'm fit and healthy. Then after that, I'm quite a relaxed kind of a person. So therefore, in the office, etc., also, I like to look at things with a calm mind, because the position which I've come into, I have to also mentor a lot of employees within the organization. I have to interact with the various constituents who are there. With that, we need to deal with them. So a lot of networking is required to know what is happening in the world, and also in the local market in India with the various state governments, because our clients are working almost all over the country involved in infrastructure. So interacting with them, knowing what is happening, where the policy changes will happen, giving the right kind of directions and thoughts to the organization. But as I said, that we have a collective decision making process. So with our employees and with everyone, it is very clear that there is full empowerment, and people are allowed to discuss and debate. So we don't encourage people to accept what the bosses tell them to accept, but we ask them to debate and discuss.
Okay. Okay. And how do you, when you're going through a tough phase, how do you cope with it mentally? Like if there is a crisis happening which may threaten the future of the organization, or those like you may have made bad decisions and so on. So how do you cope with that?
I think that is something which is, I have been tremendously fortunate that over a period of time I have been able to calm my mind, that when these ups and downs keep on coming in, I'm able to take it in our stride and see through it with clear cut solutions, try to find out. Some places we are able to find out solutions, some places we are not. So my mind, right from the beginning, has got trained into looking at solutions. So therefore, if a problem comes in, I don't find a problem to be insurmountable, and I find that a problem has a solution embedded inside it. So my mind will go to the solution, and that's the reason it doesn't get troubled.
So you have played a role in building more entrepreneurs through Sahaj. Could you tell me about that?
So that has also been a very interesting experience, because this was an opportunity which came up in 2008, where the government decided to have these common service centers, and only from the perspective that we thought that in the rural areas we can add some value, that we had embarked on that initiative, and which has resulted in building up about 80, 90,000 of entrepreneurs in the villages. So it's a great satisfaction that, because infrastructure is something where you don't build things for yourself, because every road which is built by whoever, whether it be the contractor or the concessionaire who's running it, they do it for the public good. So the satisfaction is that if you have done something if you've done a good job, then people are happy with it. If you've done a shoddy job, then it will cause inconvenience to the persons. And it's a choice which the persons who are involved in it, who are building it, or facilitating that whole thing to happen, has to take place. So therefore, I think this was a business where I have been a facilitator, and then it is the teams which have done a great job of building up the whole organization.
So how exactly does it operate? Like, what all services does someone do? How do they sign up for it? And
Yeah, so basically at the ground level, what the people do is that they are village level entrepreneurs who run these centers. So they are government services, they are financial services, there are many other services, e-learning services, their banking, insurance, e-learning services which are offered to the villages. Then there is railway ticket booking which they do. So it is like a center for every 10,000 villagers. There is one center which is run by an entrepreneur, and that entrepreneur may employ 2, 3 people at his center. So it's both a brick and click model. And so through that model, they are facilitating almost about 55 crore people in the villages.
so you are like there's a lot of humility in you in terms of uh, encouraging collective decision making, encouraging people to say no to you. Is that something which was like part of your nature, or did you learn to be humble? Like, how did this get developed? Because it seems to me like this is like a key factor of the way that Shrey has scaled up. The humility which you have seems to be the reason. So, I mean, what do you think about?
No, I think that humility only comes from the fact that a person, when they know that they don't know anything, then you start becoming humble. So I always feel that there's so much to be known on this planet, and we don't know
But
now.
were you like this when you were like 21? Like, did you have that same level of humility, or did it develop, or did you like learn it over the years?
So I think both, because it is also dependent upon that how you grow up. So with my family also, whether it is my father, my grandfather, all of them, they taught us to respect everyone. So, whether people who are working with us, the respect for them. That's why in our family, we have people working in the fourth generation with us. So the respect for people is very, very important because there is no menial work which is there. So the respect for people to learn from them because every small person, everything on this planet teaches you something. So like my grandfather used to tell me that you learn from a tree. And it was a very simple learning that, when the tree bears fruits, then it bends down with humility, that people can pick up the fruit. And when it has nothing, then it is standing straight. So, if you know something, then you will be humble. If you don't know something, then you will be standing with pride. So it's small, yeah. So it's a small learning which is very important in life, which has to be incorporated and put in practice in life.
But do you find the current generation of entrepreneurs to have that same level of humility?
No, I think it's a very personal thing. Some people, because the way that they grow up, they realize it. Some people they realize it over a period of time. But either some persons will realize at the age of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, or when they are getting into this symmetry, they realize that they have to be humble because they are getting gone. But life will have to bring in humility. So either you do it willingly or unwillingly.
What is your personal quest as of now? Like what is something which you are personally driven to do, either inside SREI or outside, like more at a personal level?
So at a personal level, know myself. I think that's the journey which each one of us we have
Right, that's
embarked
a
on.
never-ending journey.
Yeah. So therefore, the more that we know ourselves, it is better, and how we can contribute to whatever we do in touching lives of people, whether it be in organization or otherwise.
That was Mr. Hemant Kanoria telling us how SREI was built. To know more about the SREI Infrastructure Finance Limited, log on to www.shrei.com. That's www.srei.com.
You like the Founder Thesis podcast? Then do check out our other shows on subjects like marketing, technology, career advice, books, and drama. Visit thepodium.in, that is thepodium.in, for a complete list of all our shows.